I didn't wake up expecting my life to change. It was an ordinary morning. Same bed, same ceiling, same faint hum of the refrigerator in the next room. If you had asked me then, I'd have said it was just another day in a long chain of forgettable ones. But somewhere out there, far beyond the walls of my apartment, a tiny ripple was already forming. One that would reach me before the day was over. I remember staring at the coffee pot, waiting for the slow drip of caffeine, like it was the only thing keeping me alive. The air was heavy, the kind of heaviness you can't explain but you feel in your bones. It was the weight of routine, of living days you could shuffle like a deck of cards and never tell the difference, so when I stepped outside, I wasn't looking for anything. But something was looking for me. It started with a sound, not a dramatic one, not the crash of metal or the shatter of glass, just a soft, almost unnoticeable rhythm, like someone tapping the edge of a wooden table. I followed it, past the traffic, past the strangers hurrying somewhere, past the smell of warm bread drifting from a side street, and then I saw him. An old man, sitting alone, a small box in front of him. The box was covered in scratches and stains, the kind of wear that speaks of years, maybe decades. His fingers tapped on the lid, not out of impatience, but with the kind of steady focus of someone counting down to something important. I could have walked past, and honestly, I almost did. But he looked up, and in that single glance, there was something like recognition, as if we'd met before, as if he'd been waiting for me. "Do you believe in turning points?" he asked. No introduction, no hello, just that. I froze, because I'd been thinking about that very thing for weeks without saying it out loud to anyone. I don't know why I sat down next to him. Maybe it was the way his voice didn't ask for permission. It assumed I needed to hear what he was about to say, or maybe it was because a part of me was tired of walking past moments that could mean something. He opened the box. Inside were photographs, hundreds of them, worn at the edges, some faded to the point where the people in them looked like ghosts. And as he flipped through them, he began to tell me a story. Not his life story, not exactly, something else. Something that, without warning, began to weave itself into my own. The first photo was of a woman, smiling, not a posed smile, a real one, the kind that happens by accident when you think no one's watching. "She was the reason," he said quietly. "The reason for what?" I asked. "For everything," he replied. But before I could press him, he moved to the next photo. And the next. Each one came with fragments of sentences, unfinished thoughts, hints of moments that felt too big to explain in one sitting. It was like reading a book where every other page was missing. Frustrating. Addictive. I couldn't look away. At some point I noticed the street had gotten louder. Vendors shouting. Laughter spilling from a nearby table. The smell of something frying in oil, sharp and warm, hurling through the air. But I couldn't focus on any of it, because the old man was still talking. And every word was beginning to sound less like his story and more like mine. "You think you know which day is going to matter," he said, "but you never do. The day you think will be important rarely is. And the day that changes everything, it arrives like a stranger." At that moment, I had no idea that he wasn't speaking in metaphors, that he was, quite literally, leading me toward the exact moment my life would split into two halves, before and after. The old man held up one of the photographs a little longer than the others. It was different, darker, blurred around the edges. At first glance, it didn't make sense. The scene was messy, almost accidental, but his fingers traced the outline of something in the background, a detail so small I might have missed it entirely. "You see that?" he asked. I squinted. It was a street corner, a lamppost, and beside it, a chair, empty. "It doesn't look like much," I said. He smiled, in the kind of smile that says you'll understand later. "That's where I made the choice," he said. "The choice that cost me everything and gave me more than I ever thought I'd have." I wanted to ask what he meant, but he closed the photo box and slid it toward me. "Not yet," he said. "Some things you have to see before you can hear about them." He stood, slowly, like every movement was measured. And then he started walking. I don't know why I followed. I didn't even know where we were going. But something in the way he moved, steady, purposeful, told me I'd regret it for the rest of my life if I stayed behind. The streets around us were alive. Voices rose and fell in a language I didn't understand. Somewhere, oil hissed in a pan. Bread cracked under the press of strong hands. Colors blurred into one another. Golden crusts, red spices, blue tarps swaying in the wind. But I wasn't really seeing the street anymore. I was watching him. At one point, he stopped to buy something from a vendor. A paper cup filled with steaming liquid that smelled faintly of cinnamon and citrus. He didn't offer me any. He just held it close, inhaling like he was drinking the scent more than the taste. "You ever notice," he said without turning to look at me, "how the best things don't last long? The warmth of a drink, the glow after a laugh. Even the people who change us." He didn't finish the sentence. We turned down a narrow alley. The noise of the main road faded until it was just the sound of our footsteps. At the far end was the chair, the same one from the photograph. It was still empty, but next to it, a small, weathered notebook rested on the ground, its cover curling at the edges from years of being opened and closed. He picked it up like it was something sacred. "This," he said, "is why I stopped you." I looked down at the notebook, expecting, I don't know, drawings, notes? But when he opened it, the first page was blank. So was the second, and the third. It wasn't until the fourth page that I saw it, a short sentence written in faded ink. "You will read this when you are ready." The handwriting was sharp, deliberate, not his. "Who wrote this?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he handed the notebook to me. "Read the next page," he said. On the next page, in the same hand, was another line. "You were supposed to be here today." A chill ran through me. Not the kind from a cold wind, the kind you get when the world suddenly feels too small, like everything is happening for a reason you don't yet understand. I looked at him. "What is this?" He smiled. "This," he said, "is the start of the day that will change everything." And right then, a sound broke the air, loud enough to make us both turn. It came from deeper in the alley, past the chair, past the scattered shadows. Something, or someone, was there. The old man glanced at me. "You're not going to want to miss this," he said, and without another word, he started walking toward the sound. The air in the alley seemed to tighten with each step. The sound we'd heard, a faint scrape, like metal on stone, grew sharper, closer. I glanced back toward the street, half expecting to see the rest of the world moving on without us. But from here, it felt like the world had stopped. At the far end, beneath a thin beam of sunlight cutting through the buildings, stood a figure, a woman. Her back was to us. She was hunched slightly, her hands moving over something on a small table, something I couldn't see clearly from where I stood. The old man slowed his pace. For a moment, I thought he might turn back. But then, almost reluctantly, he closed the distance between them. "Hello," he said softly. The woman didn't turn around. Instead, she kept working, the rhythmic scrape continuing, metal against wood, again and again. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, deliberate. "You brought them." I froze. She wasn't talking to him. She was talking to me. "How do you know me?" I asked. Still, she didn't turn. "Because," she said, "you were in the photograph long before today." My mind spun. The photograph? The one with the empty chair? I wasn't in it. I'd seen it myself. It was just a street corner. But then I realized I hadn't really studied the shadows. She stepped aside just enough for me to see what she'd been working on, a wooden frame. Inside it was a photograph I'd never seen before, except I had. The chair, the lamppost, and there, just at the edge of the frame, a blurred shape. Me. I don't mean someone who looked like me, I mean me. Same coat, same watch, same moment I was living right now. "I don't understand," I said, my voice catching. The old man placed the notebook on the table beside the photograph. "She wrote it," he said, nodding toward the woman. "She's been waiting to finish the story." Finally, the woman turned. Her eyes were steady, but there was something else. Something like relief. "I don't have to explain it to you," she said. "You already know why you're here. I searched my mind for an answer. I didn't find one, but in my chest, somewhere deep and impossible to name, I felt it. That click. The one you get when a puzzle piece falls into place, even if you can't see the whole picture yet. She slid the photograph toward me. "Take it," she said. "When the day comes that you forget why this matters, look at it. You'll remember." I took the photograph. The paper was warm, like it had been sitting in the sun. And as I looked closer, I noticed something the others had missed. Just beyond my blurred figure, in the farthest corner of the frame. A second figure. Not the old man, not the woman, someone else entirely. And before I could ask who it was, before I could even speak, the old man said, "It's time." We walked back toward the street, the noise of life returning with each step. Vendors calling out, laughter spilling from tables, the smell of bread, of oil, of cinnamon and citrus. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. I still don't know why that day happened the way it did. I don't know who took the photograph, or why I was in it before I ever came here. But I know this. Sometimes the moment that changes your life doesn't feel like lightning. It feels like a quiet knock at the edge of your day. And you can either answer, or spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if you had.